Dayıların dayısı.
Abilerin abisi be.
Nasılsın, iyi misin?
Sen de 2 sene önce yine bu sarı koltukta buluştuğumuzda
Anlatacağı konu da şu: düşük maliyetli küçük ekiplerle büyük proje yaratmak.
Sen şimdi hangisini savunacaksın onu söyle
Abi
bana.
bugün evet, ben de tabii ki 2007'yi savunacağım.
Sen 2007'yi savundun. Shot fire! Shot fire!
Game Jam, Fall Jam sizin için bir Steam oyunu yayınlamak için temel olabilir.
İnanılmaz büyük bir fırsat yani bu hakikaten.
Artık herhalde PlayStation 6'yı görmeyeceğiz.
Şu anda 9 liraya çıktı. 9,5'a doğru gidiyor.
Gidiyor.
Yani ona da gider.
Kafa rahat. Güzel. Evet.
Hello, everyone. Hello again. Now, our next session is maintained by Mustafa Mahir Atar. The title of his speech is "Man in the Middle, Technical Artist." He will be delivering his speech titled "Man in the Middle, Technical Artist." Welcome, Mr. Mustafa Mahir Atar. You can start whenever you're ready. Could you hear me? Yes. Okay. Now you can see my screen. I think you can see now. Yes. Okay. Hello everyone. I am Mustafa Mahir Atar from Metaverse Game Studios. I'm a technical and official. I will today be talking about technical artists because there is a confusion in the market about this concept. There are some people interested in the concept as well, and today I will try to talk about this issue. Let me talk about myself briefly. Who am I? Since 2016, I am working in terms of game development in the gaming industry. And then before, I used to develop modes, maps to certain games to show my interest in the game industry. So I used to create contents in the gaming industry. And I'm dyslexic, I'm suffering from dyslexia, and also one of the few in the gaming industry. And I'm having a hard time reading text. Normally, people with dyslexia has problem with reading and numerical items, but my challenge is reading the texts, just in addition to my presentation. Sometimes I'm doing a work which can be done by many people. We cannot hear you, Mr. Mustafa. You have been disconnected for 10 or 15 minutes. We couldn't hear you. Can you now? Yes. Okay, no problem. Okay. I think I had some connection problem. Let me start from scratch. So I'm working in the Metaverse Gaming Studio as a technical artist, and I'm a trainer in the Navras Academy. And at the same time, I'm a content creator in the Dreadwork studio. I'm helping my friends, my colleagues in terms of content. And once a week, we have a platform called about gaming industry. We have a podcast in which we discuss the developments in the gaming sectors. There, we are evaluating news, talking about the news as people inside the gaming industry. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to talk about the game development roles. Generally, if we split into those two, in the business side and the things going inside of the job, we see these four things. The engineering case is doing the technical work, and at the same time, the design team is deciding on the design contents, design components inside the game. Here, normally today, we see these differences. Now we have some customizations. Software developments are working on softwares, and engineers are working on technical issues, and artists are more prone to the artistic works. So all of these roles have difficulty in terms of converging in certain point in the middle. So normally, not each of them have enough information, and for example, the other roles cannot understand or does not have a knowledge on what could be better, what could be done by the artist. So there is a gap between these two roles, and this, in order to fill this gap, or in order to remove this gap, there is another role for the technical artist. The technical artist role emerged up. So artists are focused on the style and asset creation, while developers are developing engine and gameplay features. So the aim is here to fill this gap between engineers and artists. And by cooperating with the art director and also with art director, the implementation should be done in cooperation with the engineers in terms of the contents within the game. So what is technical artist? Technical artists are people who have knowledge about real-time renderers and DCC tools. And these people at the same time are bridge between engineers and artists. So there's a great code below, as you can see. Think with artists, act like engineer. The reason is that our focus here as a technical artist is that we are trying to develop the contents with certain methods that we have or we could develop. So the technical artist's main focus is that artists, they help artists and designers get the content into the game with the least pain possible. They're trying to help them as much as possible so it is facilitated. So they help engineers and artists communicate fluently. So they ensure that there is a proper communication between these two roles. So while ensuring this communication, we have some problem. What are we trying to do here? So as a technical artist, normally, the most important thing is this one. In case of a problem coming from an artist, our question is, what are you trying to do here? So what I mean here by, and apart from the capacity or business level, it is really important to understand the solutions, and we need to find the proper precautions, proper steps to be taken. So also, there are some distinctions within the typical artists. As you can see, there is some colors on the green. You can see the engineering part is more green. As it gets red, you can see on the right side that it is getting more artistic. So I tried to make a scale here. And of course, technical artists had some distinctions, some aspects. So we are trying to merge between art and technical issues. So I try to underscore the different aspects of the technical artists here in this presentation. I try to create a table here from lighting to debugging and optimization. All aspects have their requirements and some qualifications. I will talk about these qualifications soon. And after describing them, I will be providing some recommendations how you can be transferred to the technical artist part from engineering part. So these are the scope of the technical arts, which is really developed in advance from different aspects. So here, as you can see, there are many parts that try to visualize the things that is associated with technical arts. One of the important things is the effects and workflow of R&Ds. Graphic optimization, education, pipeline development, and tool development. And as you can see on the top, animation and rigging. All of these concepts can be inspired from art and engineering. So let's start with technical arts, with shader and material artists. I'll talk about this later on as a technical artist. So if you are working with the some materials, here's what you should do. You will be trying to create the animation with the materials, and you'll be engaged in post-production. So as you can see, there's a demo that I placed here. That's vertical slides demo that we developed, and within the game, there is a model that you use while fulfilling the quests. And after you, for example, in this model, there's an effect after you select the universe, the galaxy. It's a transition animation. I want you to watch as well. I think the quality is not that good, but here, as you can see, when you select the map, everything gets darker and darker, and you see some galaxies, the universes, when you use the particle system while creating the universes, the planets, sorry. So this is the effect that you see when you click on the planet. You see the general environment of the terrain that you wish to go. We used many things to create this. So in summary, so here in this demo, the post-process, we use shader materials, post-process particular effects. We used all of them together. It took us 2 weeks to complete it. So this was one of the examples that I could give in terms of shaders and material effects. So VFX artists, I couldn't show an example in this regard, but if you wish to work in this industry within this role, there are some precision environment animation, the structural meshes, particle simulations. These are the aspects and fields that you will be engaged in. So normally, when you're working as a VFX artist, the responsibility of yours is these R&Ds. So in addition to these, sometimes you have to do some particle simulations. Maybe you do field particle simulations, and at last, and of course, it requires mathematic knowledge, and I will show you some resources that you can use. Okay, the R&D in technical art. Let's talk about this. Generally, as technical arts, we have to monitor closely the new softwares and tools. So in order to do that, we are always doing research and development. And apart from that, new softwares and tools can be tested, should be tested, and the team should speed up the workflows, and we need to focus on the contents that can do so, and we need to make research for the content creation. Sorry. So in terms of the content creation, you have to look at some tools for content creation. So an example here, as you can see, is from the higher solution. I think it was 426 or 27. One of the problems that we encountered in the project was of course, we are working with many artists, and which was a problem that in terms of in the process development, the artists had their own workflows, and we had to keep up with them in a certain level. So the main problem here was that receive the structures of the characters within a certain pipeline. The models were same, but we had time and speed to do so. So, and it's our responsibility to fix them up, and we really worked on that hard. So, therefore, after we released the demo, we focused on the groove layers. Maybe we try to test to see whether it can help us in terms of the creating the hair. So, you know, you create a hair in another tool, and you import it there, and it feels like the character has hair. So as a result of the tests, the structure is really great, comes with great success, but optimization was a problem, and which also required costs in terms of the computer power. So we suspended it, and we had different recommendations from certain VFX artists. Also, we are working on that, and we'll provide solutions later on. So debugging and optimization are the things that are really important as well, because inside the game, there are many inputs that you can receive from your artists. So many artists are in the play. Maybe you can have a scene, a crowded scene, the performance docs, the optimization of this scene should be taken into consideration, because at the end of the day, you are developing a PC or console game. The optimization is really of significance, because the more quality it is, or less optimized it is, the people would not be able to play it on layer devices, which is not great. So profiling on maps and levels, debugging the shaders, or finding solutions for increasing performance. All of the things are the important issues for optimization and debugging. So the example is from the Insight tool in the Unreal Engine documentation. So you can see there is a doc, so there is a log on the performances, and you can see at what time, at certain time, you see different activities, and you can see how what kind of object was requested inside the codes, and you can see the costs. And also, for example, you can see how impactful one performance is on your scene, and you can create on your solution to reduce this performance impairment. So one of the best performance enhancing tool is to use the recorded assets. Sometimes we resort to some dynamic approaches and solutions when it comes to dynamic assets. So first of all, in order to conduct the debugging shaders, I use a RenderDog, which is a free tool, and there is a plugin in the Unreal as well. So we have some problematic scenes in the development process, there are some problems, but we couldn't understand why. After some adjustments, we had some contributions, but it was not enough. As I said, we used the software called RenderDoc. So in this RenderDoc, the software helps you to show the real-time representation from the graphic card, and you can understand on which frame, on which shot is shown, and also which materials, which mesh assets are shown, and what time do they take. So with that, you can see some certain subtle details in the lighting, and sometimes we saw that the costs of some shaders are really much. It was a star, for example, and we focused on optimization of it, and we did a great job, actually. And apart from that, there should be an instructor. Instructor is another thing. As you know, I'm an instructor in Unreal Engine. As you know, technical artists are working on both engineering and art, which is a very multidisciplinary structure, so to say. So sometimes you have a responsibility of creating documentation or responsibility of finding a solution for some problems. So in order to get these gains out of these roles, let's say that in order to solve the problems, engineering specific problems, the technical artist should be updated as much as possible all the time. As I said earlier, our job is, of course, generally is to focus on R&D. We have to do R&D much, and we have to keep ourselves updated about the new developments. And apart from that, we have to have a knowledge on the artistic tools, some softwares as artists or other roles do. I will talk about this later on. And apart from that, there is a concept, a role, technical animator. I think I tried to embed an example from Angelic Anim, but I couldn't, I think. So our role here is to create procedural animations and to physical simulations. So these physical simulations are like hair, clothes, meshes. So, and at the same time, apart from these, we can name other physics and complex structures. And it could be a muscle system or morph targets. Most of the things that I said actually are the things that are not limited to a certain one single tool. So what I mean here by this, for example, we have shaders on a low level. Shading is just to a tool that you can see how it is represented. So after you customize your engine part, you can use your gains in other aspects and other roles. So once you get gains out of these aspects, you can use these gains in other ones. So our technical artists should not be bound to one single tool. And if necessary, he or she should develop themselves in other tools as well. Tool development is important because normally there are some specific problems sometimes we need to do development for this, and there are some procedural content duration. There are, making artists' life easier. That's the motto. These are the important issues. A technical artist or designers, their life should be made easier.
The designers might know how to use the tools in-game. And for instance, sometimes in the development atmosphere, you might not have these tools or they might not be sufficient. So we should come up with custom tools. I have a video prepared here. You can see the array tool inside the game. Inside this tool, you can put the objects, you can align the objects. It's a small video. I didn't open it because the presentation will go back to the beginning if I open it. I can share this on Discord after I finish the presentation. I can give you all the sources, and you can see the sources at the end of the presentation as well. You can see there is a tool where you can create such effects, and I developed this for myself. It has a modeling tool. I used Blender, and the things I can do in the Blender should be able to be used in-house. So I conveyed that inside the game. Also, there is pipeline development. When we develop the business model, we are looking at the problems of exports between tools, and we are looking at the asset validation. This is really important for the automation. And the problem we faced during the pandemic was that there were problems of exports in animations. We used to use something, I can't remember the name. In order to ease the export, we used an automation tool. And a friend had programmed it. Apart from that, asset validation and automation are really important. You should have the technical assets in the correct form, and they should be checked out every time. Because what we try to do is to do the organization of the project. The things I listed here, maybe it was around 8, 10, or 12. It is not one person responsible of it. Depending on the specialization, the areas of interest vary, and they are these that I have mentioned. We have source control as well, source control tools, a book, and Perforce. Source control tools should be known as well. You know, source control. When you face a problem in your project, you can check the folder history and you can work easier and safer. Apart from pipeline, what I can talk about till the end of the presentation can be my own work. One of the works is this. I don't know why it has bad quality now. Okay, I solved it. What I do here is that firstly, we don't use something in Angelic. It is the visual effect that we don't use in Angelic. And I wanted to make use of this visual effect in some other way, and with using texture coordinators, making a LED panel simulation. This is not particle effect, but a material effect. It is random picture. It's a random picture from the internet. In order to identify the units of the LEDs, there are some small configurations. And I simulated the left beds and had the visual here. And you can configure the details of the LEDs, the number of them, the quality of the visual or the pixels of the visual. And it's a CRT at the same time, CRT visual. And in Angelic, we have a test for Angelic. You can see the effect of the character. My problem here was that the effect we did was affected by the UV of the character, and it was fractured. For instance, there used to be a fracture in the shoulder of the character, and the effect wouldn't work correctly. Here,
which is a demo that we could use to see on the character. Here you can see how the effect is performed, and you can see this was a record that I used to show how it works. So this is pretty much it. As you can see, yeah, right, there's an effect percentage option here. I don't remember the parameters. This is one example that there was a structure in which we changed the numerical items that we made the character invisible. Here, the sources that I made use of, I can add the sources that if I forgot any, and after my presentation, I will try to share with you. So, you know, as you spread the knowledge, you can get another knowledge, so which is really important to spread resources, the knowledge. So I talked about the technical arts, the aspects of technical arts. Now it is time so we talked about the technical artists, the aspects of it. Now we will talk, I will try to elaborate on how you can be a technical artist based on these aspects. You can determine a field in terms of technical artist based on your origin and the region that you're in, and you need to go on that path to achieve that certain goal. I personally focused on the game design when I started, and then I will focus on 3D arts. Afterwards, I worked as a 3D artist, and then I did some jobs within the games. I focused on the models and effects. I improved myself in accordance with them, and I learned and new things to improve them. My recommendation here is to, based on where you are from, or based on which aspects you have tendency to, you have aptitude for. If you are, for example, are more prone to or aptitude to graphic design or modeling, then you should improve yourself in terms of the engines, the motors. So if your field is computer graphics, if you are good in mathematics, you should definitely be interested in shared development, which is my area of interest within the concept of technical artists. So workflow of R&D, as I said. So there is a part that I didn't talk about, animation and tool development. But except them, I can see a position and other aspects. So if you are from art related profile, you need to understand and have a knowledge on the details of the tool that you have been using. You should understand how graphic card, for example, is working while creating the images. You should create your own background and fundamental knowledge. So everyone interested in all of these aspects can improve themselves by asking certain questions on other surrounding aspects. So this is my recommendation for those who are interested in art. Apart from that, for engineers, my recommendation is that of course, the responsibility of them is to find an answer for the questions. I recommend them to enter in these aspects. And in order to understand the problems of the artists, they need to know the content tools like Maya, Blender, all of these modeling softwares. Maybe Photoshop, we can name the texture softwares, image editing or substance designer. These are the softwares that are important. I also recommend people to work on this as well. The technical artists, normally, they define a problem and define an answer to that problem and work on that answer, which is a long one. So 60% of what you do is about communication, 30% of them is learning, and the 10% is implementing it. So you have to use the solution as fast as you can once you get the problem. So these were the recommendations and suggestions that I could say. Apart from that, checking my slides to see whether I forgot something. So this is all that I can say. If you have any questions, we can talk about this as well. Yeah, we can talk about them. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Mr. Mustafa Mahir Atar. We have 10 minutes left. We don't have any questions, but you can ask whatever you like. Okay, things that I like to add. Let me think. I'm a little bit tired. Of course, the technical art that we are talking about is a broad one, really broad one. And I've seen a question here. Okay, from Ur Önal. How much one technical artist is interested in sound and music part of game development? Yes, he is right. Not apart from the technical issues and art-related issues, sound and music are the things that the technical artist is interested as well. So generally, there is a concept of sound design. Actually, these sound engineers technically are technical artists. So I talked about the visual part related to technical artists, but there is also a part called audio engineering. There are fields related to it, and they are as important as the other ones. So I just, evaluated the whole process within my perspective, as I'm not into it. Into the sound engineering. I didn't spend time on them so much, but as it's as important as the other one, because from the implementation of the sound in the game to simulating them, there are many topics, and most of them are the things that are responsible of the sound designers or sound engineers, not the other ones. I think that's the correct way of doing it. Yeah. Yeah, of course, yeah, technical artists are also interested in the sound and music, but it's not as affiliated as, for example, not related to work as a technical artist. If you are a 3D artist, there's a difference between them. In our project, I didn't do the sound implementation. For example, it was a job of responsibility of sound engineers back then. Thank you. I have a question for you. What is the most challenging problem? I mean, in terms of softwares within this process, which one was the challenging? In my perspective, my hobby, fun, job is based on game, as I said. The part which challenged me was the things not related to gaming, because I really like trials. For example, while coding, I really have hard time. Maybe it's because of my handicap. As I said, I have dyslexia. I have problem with the writings. I have some problems with the writings, texts. So the problems were like that. But my recommendation is that you need to have a good command of mathematics. I really like mathematics, which is something that I make use of in my daily tasks as necessitated by my job. If you are good at mathematics, like 85% of this is based on mathematics. Textuals are mathematics, all of them are mathematics. Can I show a demo based on this? Can I open up some new pages? Of course. There's a website called Shader Toy. As I'm interested in the computer graphics, this is one of the best examples in terms of shaders, one of the introductions. Here, you create some mathematic calculations based on the pixels, and you create different pixels, pick the different images. You know, the technical part of it is really complicated and sophisticated. You know, you need more than a webinar for this. For example, let me show you this character. Maybe I can show the C here. Here's the example. There is a ray merge here in order to render the shades, lightnings, the mesh, the 3D objects. You should use ray merge. So here, as you can see in the example, different objects were created by using ray marching. I didn't remember the name of the person who did this, but that person, I think, was the owner of this website. So in order to create this image, they used the C+ or C++ codes, I mean specifications on the right-hand side. Here is not only a code. Here are the mathematic functions. And as you can see on the left, it's representation, which is really fun. So someone asked my recommendation about the shader learning. The easiest one is that you can look at the shader toy. You can learn the basic things about shader toy. The shader toy is based on functions and mathematics. If you go down to the shaders, you can maybe be interested in computer graphics. Computer graphics is all about, you know, how the graphic card works. So, summary, shader works is one of the things, and Inigo Quales is another one. This person worked in many sectors and then in his leisure time, he made a website called Shader Toy. I was really surprised to see it as well, you know. The image that you see is completely produced by mathematical functions. There's a video on YouTube as well. I will share my resources that I use later on. Here, he describes how he created this image by using these mathematical functions. Brunel says, what are the problems when technical artists are trying to associate between this art and programming? The problem is here to ask the correct question, because you are a man in the middle. The reason I said man in the middle is because you are a man in the middle and you are rushing between other part to the other part. So the main problem here is that when I encounter with the request which is not referenced, I really have problem. So when you're not able to ask the right questions, you cannot get the right results. And apart from that, another problem was, for example, you have some problems with animations, and personally, I'm not good at animations. I'm not an animator, so if there's a problem in a field on something I'm not interested or not have knowledge on, I need to find a solution and I need to work on that. That was a problem. Another big problem is about your qualifications and communication between the aspects, and you need to focus on, my recommendation for you is to focus on the soft skills. I think it's one of the most social workforce. Sometimes I go to my colleagues, my teammates, to ask if they need something. It of course depends on the job you have in your hand, but really it is something that requires communication. Yeah, here. Thank you very much. Our time is done. Thank you very much for your attendance and your participation. Thank you. See you.